Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Got the University of Oregon hat on, and so we're going to have a political topic today. It's the political topic of today, yesterday, and the past week, really, since Joe Biden crashed and burned at a debate against Donald Trump, a debate that was early in the process, explicitly so that Joe Biden could quiet fears that a 82-year-old is too old to be president. Well, miss, as you all know, an 82-year-old is too old to be president. I think there probably are 82-year-olds who could do it, probably less than half. Definitely not one named Joe Biden. Longtime listeners and viewers of this channel will remember that we had a program late last year that was entitled Drop Out Joe. And that program is unfortunately pretty prescient. Joe Biden is just not fit to be president at this point, and it's not his fault. People get old. Nobody beats Father Time. Undefeated, that guy. Now, there's plenty to dislike about Joe Biden's policies, and there's plenty to praise about Joe Biden's policies. He's got a record which historians and political scientists will have an interesting time dissecting, but only if he accepts the reality that it shouldn't be him anymore. It was barely okay for it to be him in 2020. I thought he was soft in the head then, and frankly, he was. But when you have a choice election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, even soft in the head Joe Biden is looking pretty attractive. When you have a choice election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, who is even softer, maybe even mushy in the head at this point, I'm stretching that metaphor. I don't know what to do. I mean, the choices here are sort of crazy or senile. Awesome. I don't think either of these guys is fit to be president. Now, the difference is the Democratic Party is still a coherent organization. It's not completely taken over by the whims of an individual. And so the Democrats have an opportunity to do what's necessary. And the first Democrat who really needs to do what's necessary is the lead Democrat, head Democrat Joe. Joe, drop out. Sound like a broken record. You are not the best person to represent the American people or the Democrats, at least not anymore. You had a good run, man. You were the youngest senator ever. Call it a career. You don't live forever. Take some time off, go to bed early, hit the buffet at 4 in the afternoon, and take your victory lap, man. But let the Democrats pick somebody else. And so who else? Who else would you pick? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Some of the most recent polling out from The Economist and others indicates that some of the strongest tickets are headed by women. Christian Whitmer and Hillary Clinton, of all people, actually poll ahead of Donald Trump in that poll. How about that? The best ticket was actually Whitmer with a guy named J.P. Pritzker uh, from Pennsylvania. That was the ticket that actually seemed to poll the best. But the point isn't who actually takes over for Joe. It's that somebody takes over for Joe. We are no longer talking about a choice between this and that. We're talking about a choice between this and effectively nothing. Joe is an empty chair. It's, again, not his fault, but he needs to be shuffled off. And if he won't get up on his own, well, then that's when the Democrats have to do what they need to actually make their party function for the country. How do the Democrats get rid of Joe, James? Aren't all the primaries done? Yeah, all the primaries are done. There's two ways that the Democrats could remove Joe Biden against his will. The first one is by far the most likely if it happens at all. And again, I don't know that the cringing Democrats will actually do this, but they have adopted in their rules for the convention a clause, a good conscience clause that any of the delegates to the convention could invoke. And it basically states that if the delegate could not vote for the person to whom they are pledged in good conscience, then they aren't bound to legally. And this is obviously a clause designed for this circumstance. Information comes to light between when the primaries conclude and the convention. Now, maybe they were imagining that information might come to light on some kind of horrifying scandal that got covered up through the primaries, or maybe it was the president ends up having a stroke. Well, effectively, the president's had a stroke, guys, and this is a horrifying scandal that has been covered up through the primary, that Joe Biden is no longer mentally fit. We now know, we have learned new information, and those delegates are allowed to, under the rules, refuse to vote for Joe Biden. On the first ballot, if they don't vote for Joe Biden, everybody agrees at that point that the delegation is open, the convention rather is open, and you would take nominees and have floor debates and coalition build and maybe find a smoky room. This is how American politics worked until the 1960s. For, not quite 200 years, that convention style was the norm. And you know what? It worked. We got perfectly good presidents out of conventions, like Abraham Lincoln, Roosevelt, the other Roosevelt. They all came from the convention system. There's no need to have the primary voters be the end all last word. It's not necessary for the democracy. Actually, it might even be harmful for the democracy. That's why that in good conscience clause exists. It wouldn't be there except for this circumstance. Now, the other way that the Democrats could unseat Joe Biden would be through the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment, it was adopted in the early Cold War. It imagined what if the president is mentally unfit to make decisions of national security importance in a short time frame. You're talking about 25 minutes between when you detect the Soviet missiles and Washington, D.C. is incinerated. You better have somebody who's a little quick on their feet. Well, the 25th Amendment says, well, if the cabinet and the vice president all agree that the president isn't capable of discharging his duties anymore, they can remove him. And there's an entire due process that is triggered, and it's all outlined in the 25th Amendment. But the point is, if they all sign that letter, Joe's not president anymore. Kamala Harris becomes president. And if Joe's not president anymore, well, I think you could pretty safely say he isn't in good conscience deserving of the nomination at the convention. So that's the story. Now, future video, we'll talk about some of the other folks who the Democrats might consider nominating and some of their pluses and minuses. But the one thrust that we need to all recognize right now is, for the good of the country, Joe Biden, drop out, Joe. You got to go. Heck, for the good of the country, Donald Trump would drop out too, but I don't have as much faith. Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hit that like button. It actually helps these videos get viewed by others. Leave a comment. Those comments are fun. Again, any way that you engage this video will allow the algorithm to know that, hey, at least a human on the other side watched it. Heck, you can hit the dislike button. I don't care. Well, that's not true. I do care. But I mostly want to make sure that these videos are reaching out to folks who want to see them. And it gives me the feedback that I need to keep having fun doing it. Anyway, it's just a thought. I'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow.